Your body isn't eating food, it's extracting parts. Your job is simple: chew and swallow. The body's job is harder. It has to dismantle what you ate, sort the pieces, and turn them into molecules your cells can actually run on. That process is nutrition. Most people think nutrition is about diets. Keto, vegan, low carb, paleo. Your body doesn't care about diet labels. It only cares whether it can extract usable molecules. And that process starts earlier than most think. Digestion begins in your mouth. Teeth crush food into smaller fragments while saliva releases enzymes that start breaking carbohydrates apart. It sounds simple, but this step matters. Smaller pieces mean more surface area, which makes digestion easier. Skip chewing properly and your stomach has to pick up the slack. Once swallowed, this is where the heavy demolition begins. Stomach acid unfolds proteins and enzymes, slice them into smaller chains. It also wipes out many microbes that arrived with the meal. By the time food leaves the stomach, it doesn't look like food anymore. It's chemical mush. That mixture moves into the small intestine, where most nutrients are actually absorbed. The pancreas releases enzymes that cut carbohydrates into sugars, proteins into amino acids, and fats into fatty acids. Biochemical scissors breaking everything into usable pieces. Only once those molecules are small enough can they pass through the intestinal wall and enter the bloodstream. But there's still one more checkpoint: the liver. Every absorbed molecule reports here first. The liver decides what gets burned for energy, what gets stored, what gets converted into something else, and what gets removed entirely. The liver is quality control, which leads to the real takeaway. You don't run on what you eat. You run on what your body successfully breaks down, absorbs, and processes. Calories alone don't run the system. Usable molecules do, and those molecules fall into two main groups: macronutrients and micronutrients. Macronutrients. Once food is broken down and absorbed, the body is left with usable molecules. Most of the energy you run on comes from three of them: carbohydrates, fats, and protein. These are called macronutrients. Not because the name is fancy, because your body needs a lot of them. They're the main fuel and building material the system runs on. Start with carbohydrates. Whether carbs start as bread, fruit, rice, or sugar, digestion eventually turns them into the same molecule: glucose. Once glucose enters the bloodstream, cells use it as quick fuel. Your brain especially likes this system. It burns a large portion of the glucose moving through your blood. The body stores some of that glucose as glycogen in the liver and muscles. Think of glycogen as a short-term battery. The problem is the battery is small. Once it fills up, extra glucose has to go somewhere else, usually into fat storage. Not because carbs are evil, because the body hates wasting energy. Fat works differently. Fat is slower fuel but much more energy dense. Gram for gram, fat contains more than twice the energy of carbohydrates. Fatty acids also help build cell membranes, produce hormones, and provide longer-lasting energy when glucose runs low. Then there's protein. Protein breaks down into amino acids, the building blocks used to repair tissue, create enzymes, and build muscle. Unlike carbs and fat, the body doesn't really store protein. So if intake stays low, the body starts borrowing amino acids from muscle just to keep essential systems running. Which brings us to the famous fitness myth: the anabolic window. The idea that muscle growth disappears if you don't drink a protein shake 5 minutes after a workout. Your muscles apparently are on a stopwatch. In reality, the body works on longer patterns. What matters far more is total protein intake across the day. All three macronutrients ultimately provide raw material for energy. But they can't do it alone. They still need smaller molecules to make the chemistry work. Micronutrients. Macronutrients provide the fuel. Micronutrients make that fuel usable. These are vitamins and minerals, molecules your body needs in small amounts but uses in thousands of chemical reactions. They don't provide calories. They activate processes. Think of them as the tools that let the machinery run. B vitamins help convert carbohydrates, fats, and protein into usable cellular energy. Magnesium supports hundreds of enzyme reactions involved in metabolism. Iron carries oxygen through the blood so cells can actually burn fuel. Iodine helps the thyroid regulate metabolic speed. Small molecules, very large consequences. Without enough micronutrients, the system still runs, just not very well. Energy production slows. Recovery takes longer. Hormones start drifting out of balance. This is where modern diets create a strange problem. Food is everywhere, but nutrient density often isn't. Highly processed foods are engineered for taste and shelf life, not micronutrient coverage. Calories stay high while vitamins and minerals quietly disappear from the menu, so someone can eat plenty of food and still come up short on the molecules that actually keep metabolism running. The engine has fuel, but some of the spark plugs are missing, and when those reactions slow down, the system that manages energy has to compensate. That system is inside your cells. Metabolism. Your metabolism isn't a speed setting, it's the engine behind everything. Every second, thousands of chemical reactions are happening inside your cells, turning nutrients into energy, repairing tissue, regulating hormones, keeping organs running. You don't feel any of it happening, but you absolutely feel when it starts running poorly. At the center of that system are mitochondria. Mitochondria are tiny structures inside your cells with one job: converting nutrients, mainly glucose and fatty acids, into ATP. ATP is the energy currency your body spends to do anything. Move a muscle, think a thought, repair a cell. All of it costs ATP. When mitochondria are working well, you don't notice them. Energy feels stable. Recovery is normal. Focus holds. When they're not, you notice everything. Mitochondria need three things to run properly: oxygen, micronutrients, and steady metabolic signals. When those inputs drop, energy production becomes inefficient. This is mitochondrial dysfunction, and it doesn't mean the system stops. It means it starts producing energy poorly. Cells receive less ATP, the body slows things down to compensate. That's the fatigue you can't explain. The recovery that takes longer than it should. The brain fog that shows up for no obvious reason. Not laziness, not aging. The engine running below capacity. Here's where it gets useful. Metabolism is flexible. After you eat, the body burns glucose first. When glucose drops, it shifts to burning stored fat. That ability to switch between fuel sources is called metabolic flexibility, and it's one of the clearest signs of a healthy metabolism. Most people have lost it without realizing it. Constant snacking, processed food, and blood sugar swings keep the glucose tank perpetually topped off. The body never gets a signal to switch fuels. Fat burning barely happens. Energy becomes dependent on the next meal. The biggest signal hub is not your brain. The gut. Your gut is not just a food tube, it's more like a crowded ecosystem living inside you. Trillions of bacteria live along your digestive tract. This community is called the microbiome. Some microbes help break down food, some help train the immune system, and many help produce molecules your body can't make on its own. In other words, digestion isn't a solo job. You've got help. One of their biggest roles involves fiber. Your body can't digest most fiber on its own, so it passes it down the line. Gut bacteria ferment it instead, turning it into short-chain fatty acids that help support the gut lining and regulate inflammation. Small molecules, big impact. These bacteria also communicate with your brain through something called the gut-brain axis. Signals travel through nerves, hormones, and immune messengers that constantly report what's happening in the digestive system. The brain listens, and one of the most interesting signals involved is serotonin. Serotonin is usually introduced as a brain chemical tied to mood. But most of it isn't made in the brain at all. Roughly 90% of serotonin is produced in the gut. Inside the intestine, serotonin helps regulate digestion and intestinal movement. But those signals also interact with the nervous system, influencing mood, appetite, and sleep, which means the environment in your gut can quietly influence how the brain feels. When the gut ecosystem is balanced, digestion and signaling run smoothly. When it's irritated, stress, illness, antibiotics, or heavily processed food, the signals start drifting. Sometimes that shows up as digestive issues. Sometimes it shows up as cravings, fatigue, or mood swings. Different symptom, but same system. And every nutrient moving through that system still has one final job. The body has to dismantle it. Eventually, every nutrient you eat ends up in the same place, inside your cells. Once there, those molecules move toward the mitochondria, the part of the cell responsible for turning nutrients into usable energy. Glucose and fatty acids move through chemical reactions that produce ATP. ATP is the body's energy currency. Every movement, every thought, every heartbeat spends it. But producing energy isn't perfectly clean. Each time cells generate ATP, small byproducts are created. Over time, those byproducts contribute to cellular wear and tear. Running the engine always creates a little exhaust. Three forces drive most of that damage: inflammation, oxidation, and glycation. Inflammation is the body's repair signal. In short bursts, it's helpful. It helps heal injuries and fight infections. But when inflammation stays switched on too long, it starts damaging healthy tissue instead, like a fire alarm that never shuts off. Oxidation works a bit like biological rust. When cells produce energy, they also create reactive molecules called free radicals. In small amounts, the body can handle them. When they build up, they begin damaging proteins, cell membranes, and even DNA. Then there's glycation. This happens when excess sugar sticks to proteins and fats, forming stiff molecules that gradually damage tissues. It's one of the quiet drivers behind aging skin, damaged blood vessels, and metabolic disease. So the body is constantly balancing two things at once: producing energy and repairing the wear that energy production creates, which leads to the real strategy behind nutrition. The strategy. The strange thing about nutrition: almost every diet that works ends up doing the same few things: keto, paleo, Mediterranean, high carb, low carb. The branding changes, the rules change, the arguments get loud, but the biology underneath it barely moves. Because the body isn't following diet trends, it's following chemistry. Once you understand how the system actually works, the strategy becomes much simpler. First, remove heavily processed food. These foods are engineered to be easy to overeat. They combine sugar, fat, and salt in ways the brain struggles to regulate. When those foods disappear, appetite often settles down without much effort. Second, prioritize protein. Protein supports muscle, hormones, enzymes, and immune cells. It's also the most filling macronutrient, which naturally helps control hunger. Third, adjust fuel to match activity. Someone sitting at a desk all day burns far less carbohydrate than someone training hard. The body can run on different fuel ratios. What matters is matching energy intake with energy demand. Fourth, cover micronutrients. Vitamins and minerals are the small molecules that keep metabolism running smoothly. When those are missing, the system becomes less efficient even if calorie intake is high. So the strategy isn't mysterious. Eat mostly real food. Get enough protein. Match fuel to your lifestyle. Cover nutrient gaps. Different diets package these ideas in different ways, but they're solving the same biological problem. Because the body doesn't run on diet philosophies, it runs on molecules. Human nutrition has always looked complicated. Different diets, different rules, endless arguments, but underneath it all, the body is just running chemistry. Let's keep the momentum going and jump into the next video.